Premier League teams have a reputation right across Europe for throwing money around like a drunk in a strip club. Year upon year, the Premier League outspends every other division on earth, and in recent years, that gulf has grown even wider. The reality of all that spending is that a great deal of money is wasted, and whilst I was surprised when planning this video by just how many bad signings there were, I suppose it is in the nature of being a club record signing that expectations as soon as you arrive are sky high, and failure to meet them will see you deemed as a failure. It's important to note that I am ranking the signings, not the players, so the fee, wages, sell-on value and ultimate impact are all taken into consideration, not just how good the players themselves are. Of course, some club record signings are very recent, so how good a signing they will prove to be is open to a fair amount of debate, and that's one of the many reasons why I suspect many of you will disagree with me, and most likely with each other in the comments as well. But as I always say on this channel, that is all part of the fun. All fees are in pounds sterling at the time of the transfer, add-ons are taken into account, and if both are exactly the same but the players were signed in different windows, I'll include the older one due to inflation. Here is how I would rank every Premier League team's record signing as signings from worst to best. 20th, Chelsea, Kepa Arrizabalaga. My apologies to Kepa Arrizabalaga, but unless Burnley decides to pay £300 million for a corpse anytime soon, he's likely to remain the Premier League's worst club record signing for some time. That isn't to say that there isn't ample competition for that title, but come on. Arrizabalaga cost £71.6 million, making him the most expensive goalkeeper of all time, Chelsea's most expensive signing of all time, and the most expensive Spanish player of all time. When you think about it, that's pretty mental. I'll be honest, in Arrizabalaga's first season at Chelsea, I thought they'd overpaid for a decent young goalkeeper who would at least be their number one for many years to come. We now know that isn't going to be the case, as the Spaniard endured a wretched 2019-20 campaign and has already been replaced by the £22 million signing of Edouard Mendy, so that's less than a third of what he cost. At this stage, Chelsea might be lucky to recoup even that for Kepa though, who still has a number of years left on his contract at the bridge. 19th, Everton, GYLFI Sigurdsson. Everton have spaffed some serious money up the wall in recent years, whether it be £24 million on Davy Klaassen or £20 million on Morgan Schneiderlin. Arguably their worst piece of business has also been their most expensive though, and that is the signing of Icelandic international GYLFI Sigurdsson for an eye-watering £14 million up front, plus a further £5 million in potential future add-ons. That's more than their neighbours Liverpool paid for Mohamed Salah, Sadio Mane or Diogo Jota. Individually, of course, not combined. Sigurdsson is a very talented player who has shown improved form recently, but he has had a tough time more broadly at Goodison Park since his arrival in 2017, and given his age and the fee involved, it was a crazy piece of business from a financial standpoint. 18th, Crystal Palace, Christian Benteke. Christian Benteke was considered a flop at Liverpool after the Reds paid £32.5 million for him in 2015. But he ended up joining Crystal Palace only 12 months later for almost the exact same fee. Palace forked out £27 million on the big Belgian up front, which could rise to £32 million subject to add-ons. Following a really excellent debut campaign at Selhurst Park, Benteke subsequently spent 3 seasons looking as though he'd forgotten what a goal looked like. Benteke has bagged 3 goals so far this season, which is his joint best record over the last 4 years. Enough said. 17th, West Bromwich Albion, Oliver Burke. Following a lightning start to the 2016-17 season at Nottingham Forest, Oliver Burke was linked with the likes of Liverpool, Manchester United and Bayern Munich. He ended up signing for RB Leipzig for £13 million, but despite failing to impress in the Bundesliga, Burke returned to England in a club record £15 million move to West Bromwich Albion. He was even less impressive at the Hawthorns though, only featuring infrequently, as the Baggies finished bottom of the Premier League. Following 3 years, 20 appearances and 0 league goals, Burke left the club in the summer, joining Sheffield United in a player exchange deal which saw Callum Robinson head in the opposite direction. 16th, Newcastle United, JOELINTON. We've already seen more from JOELINTON this season than we did during all of last season, but he still has a long way to go before Newcastle will be able to justify his club record £14 million fee. Signed for that price following just a single season in the Hoffenheim first team, in JOELINTON's defence, it is neither his fault that Newcastle overpaid so drastically for him, nor that they seemingly felt they had signed a totally different player to the one that he had been in the Bundesliga. The Magpies seemingly expected to hang their hat on JOELINTON as a line-leading and goal-getting number 9, But he isn't that, and now that Callum Wilson has been signed, JOELINTON should be afforded the opportunity to play with a little more freedom as he likes to. 15th. Arsenal, Nicolas Pepe. The 5th most expensive Premier League signing of all time, the most expensive outside of the Northwest, and the most expensive African footballer of all time, expectations were always set sky high for Nicolas Pepe. The French-born Ivorian international set Arsenal back a club record £72 million following 2 magnificent seasons at Lille, and he is yet to really explode into life in North London. Pepe has quick feet and a dangerous left foot that he looks to utilise when cutting in from the right flank, but the fact that Arsenal are currently 15th in the Premier League at the time of this recording, and yet he still can't nail down a starting berth, says a lot about how his move has turned out so far. 14th. Manchester United, Paul Pogba. The single most expensive Premier League signing of all time, still, despite the fact that he was signed more than 4 years ago now, we all know what Paul Pogba is capable of. He's 6'3", he has great athleticism, bags of flair, and he can spot a pass. For France, Pogba seems capable of tying all that together to become a really complete midfielder. For Manchester United, all too often, Pogba hasn't been able to put all of those pieces together, and during his entire 4+ years at the club, we've rarely seen him string more than 4 or 5 really impressive performances together back to back. For £89 million, that is a pretty damning indictment, and he would come even lower in this list if he didn't still have considerable sell-on value. 13th. West Ham United, Sébastien Haller. I quite like Sébastien Haller, and I thought he was a good signing by West Ham, just maybe not for £45 million. Signed for more than twice the amount that Borussia Dortmund recently paid for Erling Haaland, Haller failed to hit double figures in his debut campaign in the Premier League, and it looks likely he'll repeat that feat this season. The powerful 6'3" frontman has shown improvements in the early parts of this season, in West Ham's excellent start to the campaign, and he's already bagged as many goals in all competitions so far this season as he did in all of last. Not the worst signing, but for the fee involved, Haller was far from a bargain. 12th. Leeds United, Rodrigo. One of 5 signings in this list that only took place in the most recent transfer window, it is still extremely early days for Rodrigo at Leeds United. Part of Valencia's fire sale over the summer, Rodrigo joined Leeds for a club record £27 million, a not insignificant fee for a 29-year-old. We have seen glimpses this season of why Rodrigo has won 25 caps for Spain, most notably his ball out wide, an impressive headed goal against Newcastle United last weekend, but by and large, it has been quite a quiet start for the Spaniard. Thankfully for Leeds, Patrick Bamford has made a barnstorming start to the season, giving Leeds a 7-point buffer above the bottom 3 at the time of this recording. 11th. Fulham, ANDRÉ-FRANK, ZAMBO ANGUISSA. One of the toughest signings to rank in this list, along with those that have only just happened, ANDRÉ-FRANK ZAMBO ANGUISSA was one of Fulham's plethora of big money signings who disappointed in the summer of 2018. Brought in for £30 million, the Cameroonian midfielder made a little impression in his debut campaign as the Cottagers were relegated. Last season, while Scott Parker's side won promotion, Anguissa was busy impressing on loan at Villarreal in La Liga, who subsequently tried to sign him on a permanent basis. Fulham refused, and Anguissa now looks to be a key figure in West London. Consequently, you can see why Anguissa is tough to position, having had a very mixed first 2.5 years contracted to Fulham to date, and he ends up roughly in the middle of the pack. 10th. Wolverhampton Wanderers, Fabio Silva. Unless you have a crystal ball, trying to predict whether Fabio Silva will turn out to be a good piece of business by Wolves is a pretty hopeless task. A hugely exciting prospect, Silva started for Portugal at under 15, 16, 17 and 19 level whilst coming through the youth ranks at Porto. Although, if you'd have told someone even a decade ago that a player with 1 senior league goal to their name would one day command a fee of £35 million, they'd have put you in an asylum. Nonetheless, Wolves have gambled on Silva, who is now getting much more first-team experience at this stage than anyone could have anticipated due to Raul Jimenez's skull fracture. 9th. Tottenham Hotspur, Tanguy Ndombele. I was battered from pillar to post in both the YouTube comments section and on Twitter back in August when I said in a video that I felt Tanguy Ndombele was a better player than Naby Keita. I'm sure some of you would still disagree with that claim, but perhaps not as vociferously, and I stand fully behind it. Signed for close to £53 million, Ndombele endured a mixed debut campaign in North London, and some were quick to deem him as a flop. It's worth noting that Ndombele's rise has been a stratospheric one though, and he was just playing second-tier football as recently as 2017, and his problems have never related to his talent. A fantastic midfield technician who can beat players, pick a pass and make things happen, and Ndombele is yet to justify his enormous fee, but he's been much improved this season, and I suspect it would be unwise to think that he won't get even better in the seasons to come. Quick reminder, he's still only 23, for a couple of days at least. 8th, Sheffield United, RHIAN Brewster. Another summer signing who obviously could go either way, I tend to think RHIAN Brewster will prove his class at Bramall Lane eventually, if he ever actually manages to get on the pitch. Following a sensational debut campaign last season, Sheffield United looks somewhat doomed right now in the Premier League, but if they do go down, they should be well placed to mount an immediate top-flight return. RHIAN Brewster may be an unknown quantity at Premier League level, but the 20-year-old has already earned his stripes in the Championship last season on loan at Swansea City, where he scored 10 goals in 20 games. It's worth noting that Sander Berge cost the Blades £22 million, whilst Brewster cost £20 million upfront with £3 million in add-ons, so there was little to split the two. 7th, Burnley, Chris Wood. Whilst I think RHIAN Brewster has the ability and the potential to outscore Chris Wood in the Premier League, I have to go with certainty over speculation in this case, and Chris Wood has already bagged double figures for Burnley in every season that he's been at the club, with the exception of this one, so far at least. Burnley's joint record club signing, having cost them £15 million, would feature since his arrival predates the man he is tied with, centre-back Ben Gibson. If it had been Gibson, not Wood featuring, Burnley probably would have come in 20th. 6th, Manchester City, Ruben Dias. I spent around 12 months saying I thought Ruben Dias would be an obvious solution to Pep Guardiola's woes at centre-back on this channel, and sure enough, the deal happened in September. Dias set the Citizens back close to £62 million, making him the club's record signing in pounds, although still not in euros, with that title still belonging to Kevin De Bruyne. Dias has no doubt strengthened Manchester City's backline, forming a surprisingly strong partnership with the resurgent John Stones, when everyone had suspected Aymeric Laporte would be the man who would feature alongside him. Clearly, £62 million is a fortune for a centre-back, but Dias is a talent, he's still only 23, and it's possible that he could give a decade of service to the club, so he takes 6th. 5th, Brighton and Hove Albion, Neal Maupay and Adam Webster. The only tie in this entire video, Neal Maupay and Adam Webster, both cost exactly £20 million and both arrived in the summer of 2019, so there's literally nothing to split them. As such, I had to try and rank them as a pair, and I actually rate them both pretty highly. Maupay was destined for a Premier League move following his form at Brentford, and £20 million certainly wasn't an unreasonable sum for a man of his age, given the form that he had already shown in the Championship. The Frenchman hit double figures in his first season at the Amex, and he scored 4 in 11 so far this term. Webster is a towering centre-back who joined the Seagulls fresh off the back of winning the Bristol City Player of the Year award. Neat in possession, and in the pass, especially given his size, he's been a virtual ever-present alongside Ben White and Lewis Dunk at centre-back so far this season. 4th, Southampton, Yannick Vestergaard. One of 4 centre-backs in this video, which is more than I might have expected had you asked me to guess before planning this video, and they all come in fairly high in this video, Yannick Vestergaard apparently cost Southampton slightly more than the likes of Sadio Mane, Danny Ings and Guido Carrillo. Brought in from Borussia Mönchengladbach in the summer of 2018, Vestergaard is the second tallest outfield first-team player in the Premier League. You will be fascinated to discover. It hasn't all been plain sailing for the Dane since he arrived in the Premier League, but he has become a key cog in Ralph Hasenhüttl's side this season, and he is proving to be an aerial force to be reckoned with from set pieces. He didn't come cheap, but Southampton could probably cash in and sell him to Liverpool for a profit at any time that they liked. 3rd, Aston Villa, Ollie Watkins. I'm not sure what it says about the quality of Premier League teams' record signings that someone who has only been at their current club for 3 and a bit months can take 3rd place, but there you have it. I've been a big fan of Ollie Watkins since his time at Exeter City, and there was little surprise that it was Brentford, with their fantastic recruitment policy, who were the ones to snap him up for just £1.8 million. Having been the top scorer in the Championship last season, Brentford turned a huge profit on Watkins, selling him to Aston Villa for £28 million, plus a potential £5 million in future add-ons. My dad was so outraged by that price tag that he sent me a WhatsApp to complain about it, but I think the fee was actually about right. Watkins already has a bit of everything, and he's still improving, aged 24. He's scored 8 in 13 for Villa so far, and 6 in 10 in the league, and even though the fee was massive, I still think he was a good signing for Dean Smith's side. 2nd, Leicester City, Youri Tielemans. A first-team regular since the age of 16, Youri Tielemans has registered a quite frankly remarkable 319 senior career appearances at the age of 23. Having been a child prodigy at Anderlecht, Tielemans joined Monaco for €25 million, where France Football named him among their list of the biggest flops of the season. A 6-month loan deal to Leicester City did the trick in terms of revitalising Tielemans' career though, and given the quality of his performances on loan at the King Power Stadium, the Foxes were willing to make him their club record signing for a fee of £40 million. That's a lot of money obviously, but Tielemans is a class act, he's still young, and even at that price, I think he was a very good signing, and comfortably the second best record signing in the Premier League as far as I'm concerned. Top spot. Liverpool, Virgil van Dijk. He may be the most expensive Premier League signing that hasn't signed for Manchester United of all time, but Virgil van Dijk stands out comfortably as the best club record signing in the Premier League right now. Signed from Southampton for £75 million, utilising a hefty chunk of the money Liverpool received for Philippe Coutinho, there were one or two raised eyebrows about the fee involved. Just as he stepped up from Groningen to Celtic, or from Celtic to Southampton though, Van Dijk stepped into the heart of the Liverpool backline as though he had been playing Champions League football all of his life. Liverpool had been plagued by defensive errors during Jurgen Klopp's early years at Anfield, but Van Dijk, along with the help of Alisson Becker, remedied so many of those defensive woes, and Van Dijk himself became arguably the best centre-back on earth prior to his recent long-term setback. So that is it for today's video, but thank you all as ever for watching. Give us a like if you enjoyed the video, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section, and make sure that you are subscribed and have notifications turned on for HITC Sevens. Oh, and you can also find me on social media on either Twitter or Instagram via the username @HITC Sevens on both platforms.